And frankly, when people sit around and say things like, oh, we're happy because now we feel safe, I don't know who feels safe in this country except for the white supremacists, because I specifically as a black woman definitely don't feel safe. And frankly, my colleagues have been real nice to you today, and I applaud them, but I don't have the same demeanor because I know that multiple colleagues on this side of the aisle have faced death threats. In fact, somebody tried to kill one of my colleagues, and frankly, I don't know if this FBI or under your leadership, if those people would have been caught. I don't have any confidence in you.
Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett did not arrive at this FBI hearing with a slogan. She arrived with a record: reports of Republican lawmakers threatened after refusing to back Jim Jordan for Speaker. One account describing calls so severe that a congressman's wife slept beside a firearm. Then she put one number on the table: 14 years. In a separate Senate exchange, FBI Director Kash Patel cited that time to hire, onboard, and train for vacancies, even with added funds. Her case was not that Patel was unpopular. It was that an agency charged with protecting the public could be losing capacity while political intimidation and extremist violence remain active threats.
Man, oh man, there has been so much today, and I truly don't know where to start. So I'm just going to make sure that we start off with a few facts. So a couple of facts that we need to make clear for everyone is that, number one, Director Christopher Wray, when he was appointed to be the head of the FBI, was appointed by Donald Trump. Now, I will agree that I definitely take issue with a number of decisions that Donald Trump makes, especially when it comes to the people that he decides to appoint to very important positions, including this one, because I did have to make sure that I wasn't going crazy. But when I say that you are the least qualified FBI director in the history of the FBI, that is real, because you are the only one that never even served with the FBI prior to joining, yet we are supposed to believe that you are the greatest thing since sliced bread. I didn't ask you a question. Now, what I want to go through is to talk about why you are a failure and why, honestly, we just need to tell you bye-bye. I know that you got a little upset and you put on your show for your boss because it seems like you're trying to save your job when it came to talking to Senator Booker yesterday. But let's go through some of your failures. So before you were even confirmed, and I think one of my colleague from Georgia, pointed out that you are already targeting career officials so that you could direct illegal firings. Mind you, these cases that you were so upset about, which are the ones tied to Trump, the cases came through his handpicked FBI director. And frankly, when people sit around and say things like, oh, we're happy because now we feel safe, I don't know who feels safe in this country except for the white supremacists, because I specifically as a black woman definitely don't feel safe. And frankly, my colleagues have been real nice to you today, and I applaud them, but I don't have the same demeanor because I know that multiple colleagues on this side of the aisle have faced death threats. In fact, somebody tried to kill one of my colleagues. And frankly, I don't know if this FBI or under your leadership, if those people would have been caught. I don't have any confidence in you. And if we start talking about the reasons that I lack confidence, we could start with you not just wanting to acknowledge some simple facts. Simple facts like the vast majority of the threats are coming from right-wing extremism. And I know my colleagues have tried to stress this, but I decided that I would maybe do it in a different way. Number one, I have a couple of UCs. Kim Buck, one of multiple Republicans receiving death threats for voting against Jim Jordan as House Speaker.
Without objection.
Another one, Republican lawmaker says she received death threats after voting against Jim Jordan in Speaker's race.
Without objection.
In addition, there was another one from another colleague who now is leaving Congress because they said that they were calling his wife anonymously and threatening her life to the extent that she ended up sleeping with a firearm.
Without objection.
Okay, so here's the deal. How are we supposed to have confidence when you're sitting up here telling the Senate yesterday that it will take you 14 years before you can get the FBI fully staffed to do their jobs. You're also now redirecting resources so that they can go and play ICE agents on the streets. You're getting rid of your most qualified people. And even when it came down to somebody that you consider to be a friend, you were posted up having some fancy dinner to the extent that you posted not only once erroneously, you posted twice erroneously as it relates to catching somebody. And then you want to go and say, let me take a victory lap. Because honestly, if it wasn't for parents deciding that they were going to turn in their child, it seems like y'all wouldn't have got there, even though he literally confessed online. So I'm confused about what it is that the FBI is doing except for trying to put on a show for the apprentice or whatever you want to call him. The day after all of this took place, there was domestic terrorism that was taking place at HBCUs. They were targeted. Yet I didn't hear anything from the FBI about what was going on. And again, black people kept saying, how did we end up in this? Because the numbers are so very clear that white supremacy is a problem. And honestly, I've not heard anything out of you today that makes me believe that you're going to do anything about the white supremacy problem. The one that is leading to children being killed, children being shot, as well as members of their community as they're worshiping in their churches.
The time of the gentlelady has expired. If the gentleman would like to respond to any of that. Well, I'll respond. Kash Patel, as I said when I introduced him, public defender, former prosecutor, top staffer on the House Intelligence Committee, Deputy Director of National Intelligence with the National Security Council, Chief of Staff at the Department of Defense, and FBI Director. I think that's pretty good resume for the guy who's now running the top law enforcement agency in our country. And we've seen all the stats that he's given to the committee on how much better they're doing at getting the bad guys than the previous guy was doing. With that, I recognize the gentleman from South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Patel, I think you're witnessing some auditions, clickbait auditions for the Academy Award for my Democratic colleagues. We'll see how they fare as they're on MSNBC later on today. But do you care, before I launch into my line of questioning, to respond to Ms. Crockett from Texas on that very elaborate and theatric display?
Here's what I've learned in my government service. I don't give a damn what they say about me as long as I'm succeeding in the mission. We're succeeding in the mission because the men and women of the FBI have never been empowered to do more work and to hit the streets harder than by President Trump's authorities and resources he's given us. And so all I care about is that we are capturing more child predators than ever before, taking more drugs off the streets than ever before, that we are capturing murderers at a significantly historic rate, and we're delivering this country the lowest murder rate in recorded history. That are facts.
Patel ended with a verdict. Those are facts. But that was not the central question before the committee. The contradiction in this exchange is simple. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett put threats, staffing, public warnings, and alleged retaliation on the record. Director Kash Patel answered with outcomes. More arrests, more drugs seized, more murderers captured. Two different cases were being argued at the same table. Crockett's case was built from a timeline. She entered reports describing death threats against Republican members who voted against Jim Jordan for Speaker. The chairman accepted those materials into the permanent record without objection. She referenced warnings directed at historically black colleges and universities. She raised the Bureau's staffing gap and Patel's statement that fully hiring, onboarding, and training for vacant positions could take 14 years, even with additional funding. She also referred to the early confusion in the Charlie Kirk investigation. Patel publicly announced that a suspect was in custody, then later said that person had been released. That sequence is part of the public record. It does not prove the FBI failed to solve the case, but it does establish a question about judgment, verification, and the pressure to declare success before the facts were settled. Then there is the conflict Crockett raised over career officials. According to lawsuits filed by former FBI leaders, removals were tied to perceived political disloyalty and prior work connected to Trump-related investigations. Those are allegations. They are not a final court order, no settlement, no unredacted files, and no judicial finding was findings presented in this exchange, but the lawsuits remain part of the institutional record, and Patel did not directly address their underlying claims here. His answer was not a denial. It was a pivot. He testified that the FBI was succeeding because its agents had been empowered by President Trump's authorities and resources. Then he cited broad performance claims, including a historic murder rate assertion, but those claims did not answer the documents Crockett entered. They did not explain the staffing timeline. They did not resolve the alleged retaliation. They did not address how the Bureau assesses political threats, racial extremist violence, or public confidence after an incorrect announcement. That is why this hearing matters beyond one Congresswoman and one director. Power does not become accountable because it produces a number. Institutions earn trust when they can show the record, explain the timeline, disclose the conflict, and answer the question actually asked. The permanent record is not what the agency says it achieved. It is what it refuses to explain.